Wolverine Nation, Ohio State is vanquished, as Jim Brandstatter got to say for the second time. 3 in a row. No more excuses, except for a lot more excuses because they can't help themselves. The 5 stages of grief. Keep on not getting past anger and reverting back to denial and bargaining. We're going to talk about the game on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Happy Sunday. We are back in doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. Would have preferred to not have to wait till Sunday night to get out a reaction to the game. But here we are. And it might have been a little bit closer than a lot of people might have liked, right? But sometimes that ends up being better, right? It ends up being a good game. And sometimes you don't want to necessarily beat your opponent in terms of just big blowout victories. You want them to, feel like they have a chance, feel like, oh, it's happening, right? And that's what you're seeing is that coping that's coming from the self-proclaimed Buckeye Nation, who's sitting there trying to, circle Rod Moore's elbows and saying, look, there's the football. It's a game of inches, and Michigan won the inches time and time and time again. Listen, I know a lot of you are upset with Joel Klatt. I've rewatched the game now. Pretty much every point that he argues is like, ooh, I'm not sure about this. I was making the same argument on the sidelines while discussing things with colleagues, okay? It's just because Michigan was on the right side of calls doesn't mean that, okay, right? Because like some of them they weren't on the right side of, right? And Michigan said, okay, bet, right? Touchdown to Blake Corum. Not two, but touchdown by Blake Corum. They say he stopped short. Video to me looked like he made it across, okay? And they're like, okay, well, we'll just do it again and leave no doubt. That's kind of what happened throughout. Certainly there's going to be some calls that they think are controversial. The Roman Wilson touchdown, in my eyes, was a touchdown, right? It's once the ball crosses that, the front of the ball crosses that plane, that play is over, right? So to me, that was a touchdown. But here's the thing about it all. It doesn't matter. Because guess what? There was a game in 2016 that went this exact way, basically. Just reverse. The exception was Michigan was leading most of that game, but turned the ball over 2 times and found themselves in a fight at the end. This game, Michigan was leading pretty much the whole game, but it was Ohio State that turned the ball over 2 times and still found themselves in a potential chance to win. I wasn't nervous whatsoever when it came to the last drive, okay? Like for Ohio State. I said to Bryce Marich on the sidelines, I said, because they are able to pin their ears back now that Ohio State has suddenly just stopped trying to emulate Michigan. And since they're in a passing situation, not a rushing situation, there's going to be a point that Kyle McCord is going to make a mistake because he does so when he's under pressure. And it's exactly what happened. And it's better this way in my eyes, right? Because what ends up happening is when you can have a kind of close game and you can win it, which is something Michigan's been on the wrong side of against Ohio State for a very long time, right? Years like 2005, I think 2004 as well, 2006. 2007 to some degree. I mean, it wasn't really a close game, but that was 14-3, and it just didn't even feel that close. You've got a lot of games like that. 2016, all of them in the Brady Hoke era outside of 2011. So this is finally 2017. Finally, Michigan finds itself in a place where it's like, okay, we can win this close game because we have the belief that we can do it, and you don't. Because none of you, outside of Josh Proctor and Xavier Johnson, have ever won against Michigan. And everyone outside of Cornelius Johnson and Michael Barrett doesn't know what it's like to lose to Ohio State. The rivalry is fully shifted. It's fully moved into Michigan's territory. And without Jim Harbaugh on the sidelines, Ryan Day, and again, he knows what he did. Shout out to Jay Book, who I know is watching all of these for whatever reason. He's a contributor over at Bucknuts that for some reason watches these and likes to either clip things out of context or act like I don't know what I'm talking about here. But Ryan Day knows that he hired the PI. Call this, you'd say quadrupling down or tripling down. This is like non-tupling down at this point. He knows what he did. He did everything. They did everything in their power to try to make this game not a fair fight. And Michigan still won. Will this be the end of the Ryan Day era? I don't know, but this is certainly the end of the Marvin Harrison, Emeka Egbuka, probably JT Tumalau, Jack Sawyer. I don't know. I don't know what guys can come back, will come back, all of that stuff. But Michigan is already created an identity crisis in Ohio State. And now Ohio State fans don't know what to do about it, right? Because you're not going to beat a team usually by emulating that team. You just generally are not going to. You have to create your own identity. Ohio State had its own identity. I think that if they were able to maintain that identity a little bit more, they have a shot, right? I understand your high-flying offense didn't beat Michigan in 2021, nor in 2022, but the answer wasn't to become more like Michigan. It's just to continue to have your high-flying offense, because sometimes you're going to get got that way, right? Just game plan better. Be more aggressive. Ryan Day continues to be woefully unaggressive in this game. It's kind of bizarre. Like an obvious go for it on fourth down, he decides to punt early in the game. The at end of half, like you've got, I think, a timeout, and well, you do have a timeout, and I understand you might want to keep that, but you've got 30 seconds left. Instead, you just let it all drain out and then kick a super long field goal. Why not try to force the ball downfield another shot to see if you can see if you can't get the ball closer. Maybe take a shot at the end zone. This is a rivalry game. This is for everything too. This is potentially the biggest iteration of the game. Maybe it doesn't have quite the hype of number 1 versus number 2, but I kind of feel like it did, right? Everyone's saying this is the most important version of it that's existed. And yet Ryan Day, for the second straight year, was Dana Carvey in whatever that movie is, that, you know, where he becomes that turtle, like just turtling up. Decides that he's not going to make the mistake. Meanwhile, Sharon Moore, just aggressive and in just beautiful spots. The running back pass comes back, this time Donovan Edwards, since he's got a functional hand. So that, you know, stuff like that, the fourth down where JJ McCarthy does the quick play action in general. Sometimes it didn't work. Then you just get timely playmaking from Michigan. And all of those little, we're going to run for it on second down, we're going to run for it on third down, 2 yards a pop here and there. It pays off with a couple big plays. The Blake Corum touchdown after Zach Zinter's injury, which was devastating. We'll talk about that later. And the 7-minute drive all works out great. We gotta cut for a minute here, but we're gonna come back. We're gonna keep talking about it. I really want to highlight that 7-minute drive. That was a thing of beauty, absolute thing of beauty, and it deserves a lot of discussion. I don't know if that means 7 minutes of discussion. It deserves some discussion. We also want to just get into the Buckeye reaction and just some of the things that we've kind of seen in social media coming up. We'll discuss some of that as well. But first, these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you've got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. Now, LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Super easy to create a job profile on LinkedIn Jobs. Once you do, you can add the purple hashtag hiring frame to your hashtag hiring frame. I got that right. To your LinkedIn profile, let everyone know that you are hiring And then with simple tools like screening questions, it makes it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. Listen, Michigan got some big plays from people like Josiah Stewart or Josh Wallace, Ladarius Henderson in this game. AJ Barner probably being the first and foremost. They dipped into their transfer portal. You and your company can dip into your own transfer portal and get the people you need to win your own championship, the way Michigan just won the division and hopefully more. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job posting for free. Post your job posting for free? Okay. Terms and conditions apply. I think the sweetest part of all of it is I normally, like I've told you, like, while my Michigan fandom is not what it used to be, right? I'm not really a fan anymore. I do root against Ohio State pretty, like that's become my thing. I think I'm leaning more and more into becoming like kind of a quasi fan, like a little bit of a homer. I think that's a lot because of you. I think that's kind of what you want. I still have to stay unemotional to some degree so that I can function. And I was unemotional. I did not feel like the overwhelming joy after the game the way I may have in some other eras, right? And it was upon rewatch that I started to kind of feel it, which is kind of a shame. I wish I could have that elation like I had in 2011. I definitely felt a sense of elation in 2021, maybe even so in 2022. I had some other things that were on my mind life-wise right that moment, but certainly I feel like I'm becoming more of a homer than I was before, and I think that this sign stealing stuff is certainly pushing me in that direction a little bit. Okay, and I'm kind of fine with that. I do host Locked On Wolverines and write for Wolverines Wire, so it's not like I am required to be straight down the middle or anything anyway. It's one of the things Sam Webb told me once upon a time. He was like, you work for Wolverines Wire. You're allowed to be a bit biased. Okay. I just need to be unemotional at the same time. But I think one of the beautiful parts of this is, considering I spend so much time still hating Ohio State, is just watching all of this stuff. Because, right, like again, shout out to Jay Book, because I know he's going to clip this, and I just want to give you some of my attention because you so desperately have asked for it. I didn't even know that you did until Saturday, aside from the one that I quote tweeted. I didn't even know that this Buckeye writer guy was doing that. I saw that there was the one because someone tagged me, and then he didn't tag me anymore. And it got brought to my attention, like, yeah, this dude keeps talking about you, keeps clipping the podcast. And I looked at it while in between people at the press conference, and I was like, so he does. So I'm giving him a little bit of attention that he really desperately wants. And it's him and a lot of these other Ohio State people. Just cope and seethe. Just cope and seethe. Continue to work your way through the 5 stages. I wrote about this yesterday. It's any Michigan fan can tell you what it's like to be in your shoes right now, not just because of having gone through it with you, Ohio State, but because they've gone through it with Michigan State, right? The start of the D'Antonio era. Michigan snatches back a victory against MSU in East Lansing. That's really started the heated version of the rivalry. Mike Hart, little brother, and all that stuff. And then Michigan loses in 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, and then finally wins in 2012 before losing 13, 14, 15. And then even though they won in 16, they lose in 17, then they win in 18, they win in 19, and then they lose 2 more, and then they win 2 more. But through that, it was a lot of kind of similar things. And you saw similar things from Michigan players. You'd see Michigan players out there being like, they wouldn't say they're the little brother usually, but they would imply it and be like, yeah, we don't really care about them and we're treating them like anybody else and whatever. And they'd go out and they would lose. And then you see that like Denzel Burke in the lead up to this game. What do you see out of Michigan on film? Nothing. We just got to do what we do. All right. As the kids say, the Michigan players say, bet. So that's one end. It's just a football game, Kyle McCord said last week. Bet. It's then you see the little dance-off that happened, which seems to be one of their little traditions. That was some of the cringiest stuff I have ever seen. Now, here's the thing. The dance-off thing that Ohio State had before the game, that's great when you've been winning, okay? If you were able to clown around and everything, you have time to clown around in your pregame warm-ups after you are just dominating the other team. Like if this was 2018 or whatever, it's like, okay, you better come out with a win because otherwise that's going to look ridiculous, especially coming from the official Ohio State football account, which still hasn't posted a score. Here we are 28 hours later. They still have yet to post a final score. They didn't want that smoke, y'all. They didn't want it. But that is all just, it really is Eric Cartman licking Scott Turnerman's tears, right? Like that's what all of this is. It's, I hope it's not unchristian of me to be relishing in that. But I mean, again, it's a game, right? This is part of the game. And if you want to sit there and be braggadocious about it the way Ohio State fans are, then they say that, oh, we haven't been, except for all of the, I just wish Michigan would make it a rivalry again. Well, I'm glad you won one. It makes it a rivalry again. Like that's all, kind of bargaining, right? And then you've had a lot of denial. It was the snow. It was cold outside. We have the players were chilly, to whatever was last year, 5 plays after, Brian Hartline's 365 days, we remain silent because it became this thing where it was their birthright. That's what I used in my article. I used the Nebula Thanos lines of, I don't remember Nebula's line. I had to look it up. She said like they didn't suspect a thing. Thanos replies, the arrogant never do. I know Thanos dies shortly after. He was actually arrogant in that moment, but it's to me that it's they don't suspect a thing because they're still in their arrogance, right? They will quickly point to you what the win streak was in a certain time frame. Anyone can play that game, right? If you go back to the beginning of Bo, then maybe that looks great for Michigan fans, or the beginning of the John Cooper era, that looks great for Michigan fans. If you go to the midpoint in Lloyd Carr era, when Jim Tressel takes over, it's going to look great for Ohio State fans. But the thing that matters most is 3-0. What matters most is Ryan Day is 1-3. This great Ohio State coach. They spend all this time trying to let you know that he's so good. Now, Gus Johnson is probably doing that in part because he is an avid, big Michigan fan. Don't come after Gus. I see you coming after Gus. Don't come after Gus. I know he rubs you the wrong way with Maserati Marv and the world famous Ohio State Buckeyes. Dude's got a dog named Bo. He talks about Michigan football when you're away from him by calling him we. Like he can do what he needs to do to stay even keeled on a broadcast, all right? But it's all of this said, it's I don't know. I don't have anything else. I'm just enjoying the moment because with all the sign stealing stuff and all this talk, and now obviously it's like, oh, enjoy your vacated win. Yeah, guess what? Probably not happening, number one. Number two, that's embarrassing, y'all. You couldn't win for the third straight year. You know what Michigan's going to do. They do it without Jim Harbaugh. They do it just under all this pressure, all this fire, and you still can't do it. You know what's coming and you can't stop it. If that makes you feel better, then you're still in the bargaining stage. I'd say move on to anger at least. Get to depression faster. Get to acceptance faster, y'all. All right? All right, we're going to continue talking about the game, and we're going to do that here in just a moment. But first, listen, it's Sunday right now. You've got Sunday Night Football coming up an hour from now. You've got Monday Night Football coming up. We got championship, college football, the conference championship games coming up next week. A lot of other teams sitting at home. Can't relate. One other way that you can have fun partaking in watching those games is by engaging with Prize Picks. Now, what's Prize Picks? Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you versus the numbers. And you're not playing against a bunch of sharks, pros, people who have spent all of their livelihood, trying to find a way to take advantage of you. Because all it is you pick more than or less than on a 2 to 6 player stat projection. Like I said, you versus the numbers. You can just watch the winnings roll in that way. So Prize Picks is the most fun that you can have, winning 25 times your money this football season. And now, you can play during basketball season too. That's what kind of makes it great, right? And you can do these combo projections. Go into the specials league. You can pick football and basketball. For instance, they had like LeBron James, Travis Kelce, 10.5 3 points made in receptions. Boom. Really make that money back. Heck of a lot of fun. Highly recommend it. I might even try it for the Big Ten championship game. We'll see. Maybe it'll be a different championship game. I think that's probably more ethical. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, an enormous selection of players and stat types. It's what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege with the promo code LockedOnCollege to get a deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege, promo code LockedOnCollege. Get up to $100 deposit match. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Somewhat distracted here the last few moments because I've got a puppy that is requiring all the attention. For Jimmy Whitner, let's see if we can get the puppy to come up here and be on camera, even though I think he listens. I think you listen. But Zuri's here. She's right here. You probably can't see her on camera because she's still too short, and she's just excited to be involved. And she was very excited for me to come home yesterday after spending a good 13, 14 hours away from her. I think it was probably more the companionship and the pizza than it was anything else. But I like to think it's the game, the outcome of the game, that made Zuri really happy. Obviously, Zach Zinter, that was devastating. And if that's the end of his Michigan career, that's a devastating way to go out. I think the good news is that he is going to make a full recovery. So that should not hinder his career, but it's going to be a long road to hoe when it comes to that, of course. As someone who never quite recovered from breaking my foot in 2011. Never was the athlete I was after that. I don't think. I used to be kind of athletic. Anyway, I do want to give a shout out to, I think his name on X, Twitter, whatever, was King Buckeye, who I saw him pop up my For You on Twitter a couple times, and I had prayers for Zach Zinter and a couple times. And I think that's what the perspective that you need to keep, right? Think Devin Gardner with JT Barrett. Like, that's the perspective that needs to be kept. It's a game. And the moment you lose fact to that this is fun and any kind of devastation should not lead to drinking yourself to sleep. He says, as someone who has drank themselves to sleep after losing the game. Certainly 2010 is one that I don't remember. I think it was 2010. Yeah, 2010. So, but you have to keep that perspective, and I think it's wonderful when you see rivals being like, hey, all right, let's understand and recognize the humanity here. Because they're all humans, right? They all have common goals, and a lot of them they're very cool with each other, right? That's why J.J. McCarthy had a lot of stuff for Cal McCord. But it doesn't mean you can't have a little fun at their expense with everything. Because I think it's a lot of fun just even seeing a lot of these reactions that are not based in reality. They are still, the 5 stages, if you don't know, are denial, bargaining, anger, depression, acceptance. 5 stages of grief. They seem to oscillate between denial, bargaining, and anger. Only languishing in depression for a moment, but then the latest narrative comes out and suddenly it all just kind of goes right back to the beginning, right? They're like, oh, they were stealing signs. We were squeaky clean because we've always been squeaky clean in Columbus. There's never, ever been any impropriety. So I'm just going to go ahead and restart that denial stage and just start this whole thing all over again and just go through it the whole year. Certainly, they'll probably do it again, but I'm curious to see how many players they lose. I'm curious to see if anything happens with Ryan Day this offseason, especially if and when everything gets kind of solidified when it comes to the PI stuff. I think the problem with all of us knowing, I know this is going to sound really convenient. It's not. It's just the nature of reality. But I think with us talking about it, makes it easier for them to hide their tracks. Hence, like third day investigations changes all the names and pictures and stuff, right? They start trying to hide their tracks, make it more difficult for those who are more professional sleuthy to track down everything. But once all of this comes to light from a national outlet, which again, there are 4 national outlets working on this, and that's not me blowing smoke. I've talked to 2 directly, and I've talked to another person indirectly from that. So that's really happening. Okay, we're done with that. We don't need to talk about that anymore. But it's, I would imagine it's going to be really hard for Ryan Day to keep his job, because if you keep on losing to Michigan and you did everything you could to beat Michigan off the field, it starts to be kind of a sour look. They're going to have a new AD soon, Gene Smith retiring. New AD might be like, you know what? I want my own coach. But like I said, I think like they have an identity crisis. You knew who they were under Urban Meyer. And yet they have deviated pretty strongly from it in the Ryan Day era. They've deviated pretty strongly from what they were even at the beginning of Ryan Day. It makes it kind of funny that they took Kyle McCord, because he's just not at all the type of quarterback. J.J. McCarthy is actually kind of the type of quarterback, and they turned him down, let him go to Michigan. Funny that. So Michigan essentially, with this being the final iteration of the game, that is the one where it kind of ruins all your chances at what you're looking for. You're right. They're not going to replay this week. They're not both going to be in the playoff almost certainly. Ohio State needs basically 4 things to go right in the conference championship games. I don't know if that's going to happen, right? They need Georgia to win, I would believe, to give Alabama 2 losses. They would need Texas to lose. They would need Florida State to lose. And I don't know that it matters with Washington, Oregon. Maybe it does. But Oregon can certainly beat Washington. Either or could be above Ohio State, regardless. They need a lot of different things to happen. This was the last year that they aren't probably, they would be in next year's, right? Just they wouldn't have a bye. They wouldn't have Big Ten bragging rights. They would be playing Michigan again, all things equal, right? Like, not really with what the Pac-12 is. Michigan would be playing Washington in the Big Ten championship game if they were in the conference now. But they would have a chance at redemption. This is the last time that they wouldn't get it. So the College Football Playoff Committee better not give it to them. This is it. They can sit home. They can enjoy the winter weather. Cope and seethe. That's it. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. We'll be back on Monday. We're going to start pivoting towards the Big Ten championship game. Lots of press conference stuff. I'm sure we'll still talk a little bit about the game. I didn't even get into the Tim Walton, the Ohio State cornerbacks coach, coming after Roman Wilson on social media. I didn't get into any what Roman Wilson said. Turns out it was about Marvin Harrison. Didn't get to any of that. We'll get to some of that stuff tomorrow as well. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon. Peace.